What's going on, y'all? Welcome back to the Shane Sams Show. Super excited to be back with you again on another episode of the podcast as we talk to speakers and authors and entrepreneurs and coaches, and we help you tell your story. We help you take your business to the next level, and we have a lot of fun. I'm sitting around this morning. School is out. School is out for the summer. My kids are home. That means I don't have to get up and take them to school. They can't drive yet. Isaac's getting his driver's license. He's my 15-year-old son this fall. And I'm just like dreaming of a day where I can just be like, hey, son, have a good day the night before. And I don't have to wake up and I don't have to take anybody to school because I can just make him take his sister. So that's coming soon in my life. How's your life going on out there, everybody? And if you're watching this on YouTube, I apologize for my terrible lighting. Also, in the saga of raising teenagers, they come and steal my plugs. Like I've got USB-C plugs on my lights for my little studio here and at the house, and they come in and they take them because they also work on their iPhones. So I've lost my wires again to the abyss that is my teenage children. And all I got is my little porthole window here. So I look like I'm glowing. Which, if you're watching this, I'm going to block it. Ooh, now I'm not. And then the sun. There it is. Right. But we got a great episode for you today. We're going to dig deeper into my story pitch coaching. And I'm hoping to help you with some tips, some tactics, some strategies for going out and telling your story to the world better so that you can get your mission across, you can get your message across, and you can get people into your sales, into your funnels, and maybe sell more of what you got. We have two products over at shanesams.com where I help speakers, authors, coaches, and entrepreneurs tell their story better. To make sure that they're accomplishing all of their goals. The first one is called StoryPitch. That's for people who are doing stage presentations or webinars. So you can learn how to tell your story effectively, generate emotion, generate desire for your product, and then pitch that product really, really well at the end. That's the session that we're doing today with one of my longtime clients, longtime friends. Her name is Nikki. She has a podcast called The Sales Maven podcast, and she has a website. Go over to Sales Maven Society. We'll drop the actual link to that in the show notes and the description here on YouTube. And we sat down for 2 or 3 sessions and worked on her story, worked on the webinar that she uses in her brand to go out and pitch her products, to pitch her memberships, to pitch her coaching programs so that she can make sure she's closing every single deal and we're not letting a single lead slip through the cracks. Now, these storytelling sessions, we sit down, we look at her story, and we find the right bits. We edit them out. If they don't need to be in there, we put them in. It's like pouring a box of Legos onto the table, and then we find the exact Legos we need to build the castle that we're trying to design. My background, guys, if you're new to the podcast, is I've been a speaker, an author, a coach, and an entrepreneur now for over a decade. I've spoken on some of the biggest stages in the country, and I'm a master storyteller because I know that humans are hardwired for story, and if you get the story right, everything else falls into place. You're telling your story of your business, of your brand, of your mission, of yourself is the first domino that has to fall if you want to accomplish all your goals out in the world today, online or on stages anywhere in the world. And we're going to look at Nikki's story today. We're going to go through it. We're going to see what she's already got. We're going to talk about the parts that we need to add. We're going to take some things out. And by the end of today's episode, you're going to hear the outline and the story script that we created for her product. We also, over on our YouTube channel, you can just go search for Shane Sams on YouTube, or you can check the show notes out for this episode to get a direct link to that. We have a second session that we've posted over on our YouTube channel where we actually take what we learned today, we take the script that we create today, and we start building out Nikki's slide deck that she's going to use in her webinars. She's going to do webinars every single month so she can go out there and grow her list, promote people to the webinar, and then use that webinar to promote her products and her services. So it's going to be a great episode. I'll be back with you at the end to wrap it up. Enjoy today's story pitch session with the amazing Nikki Roush. Our goal today is just to create the outline of your story pitch. So we'll go over that. That's like the last thing we'll do. And it's a very bulleted list. It's a very bulleted list. And then, so in between this session, the homework will be to flesh that out, create more story, other anecdotes that we can plug in that handle objections and stuff like that. The next session, we're going to literally script. like what you would say in a webinar, right? We're not going to work on the webinar itself, but it's like a writer's meeting in a Hollywood studio. Like that's how in depth we want to go on the storytelling, so that as we script it, we can be like, oh, well, this handles all these objections with your story. So we don't have to do it at the end during the pitch or anything like that. Then we'll come together. Sometimes it takes an extra session. We don't get all the way through the script. So sometimes we do and sometimes we don't, depending on what we do. In between that session, you'll just start working on images. Then we'll actually like get on here and build a slide deck, like the core slide deck that you would use on a pitch. I'll start talking about how to present it better, like how to, really get the emotions churned up in the thing. That could take an extra session as well. Probably won't. But then like the goal will be to do it and let me watch it and let you actually see it and pitch it and make some freaking money off of it. Let's talk about expectations first. So what's going to make StoryPitch a win for you? Like what's your personal goals? What do you feel like you want to get out of this? Like tell me your expectations.
My expectations are to set something up where I can do something on a consistent basis that is driving people into sales, right? Into either the new kind of resource hub that I'm working on or the membership.
What does consistent mean to you? Like monthly? I mean, what do you?
I mean, I would like to see at least like 10 to 20 new sales a month from whatever I'm doing.
Okay. And are we talking what kind of sales, like specifically, like membership, anything, or just any transaction kind of deal?
I guess that's what I wanted to chat with you a little bit about. So I think I mentioned to you, I'm working on this resource hub, and it's kind of this super low price, but the idea is for it to be kind of a foundation piece that gets people comfortable with me, with the training, and like launches them into the other things, right? Into the membership or into the private coaching with me or into the master classes.
How much is the resource hub right now?
Well, I haven't actually launched it yet. I'm thinking of launching it at $299 for the year.
How much is the membership right now?
$147 a month.
How much is private coaching with you?
I mean, there's different options as far as private coaching, but let's say it's a $5,000 sale.
Well, and master classes, is that just your content? You kind of throw them out there every once in a while, like for a deal or something?
No, those are like they are specific classes on specific sales topics. So they're $495 a class.
What is the resource hub? It seems out of place.
I know it's new, and it's something that this coaching program that I was in, they were the ones that are like, you need this kind of entry level kind of for the people who aren't really ready to. It's okay. I'm like talking in circles here. It's kind of based on Donald Miller's like flight school and like his whole thing. And it's like, give somebody something that's at such a low price, it's such a huge value that they feel really good about it. And then they want to do more with you, which is kind of my thing. Like, I just need to get people to start with me, because typically if I can get them to start with me, then they'll stick around.
And they think that a $299 thing would sell better than a $147?
Well, it's $299 for the year, the $147 for the month. I mean, I'll say, like, honestly, Shane, sales are way down. Like, I just had my worst sales month last month since 2020.
Okay.
So, yeah.
And that's what we're going to fix. I don't know. This seems weird. We're going to talk about it, though. That's the first thing we're going to talk about, but let's just wait here. So what are you doing right now for marketing? I just want to get some background here before we move on.
The majority of pretty much all of my marketing budget goes towards podcast pitching. So I have a pitcher. So
is that like guesting? Is that like for you to be a guest?
Yep.
And then how many of those are you doing a month?
I do between 3 and 6 a month. Like,
it's a flat fee, no additional cost. It's whatever they land
so they pitch me to 10 podcasts a month, and I get between 3 and 6 yeses. Of all the money I've ever spent on marketing, it's the only thing that pays off for me.
Yeah. I was doing, we were making money on guesting, but I just didn't have time to do it anymore for a little while because we're doing other things. Yeah, I loved it. Yeah, it's the best way to get in front of other audiences for sure.
Yeah.
And then you've got your podcast, of course.
Mm-hmm.
Are you doing anything else?
I mean, I have my team does social media posting, but that's not really generating.
Social media is useless. That's what it
Yeah.
is.
Yeah.
No Facebook ads or anything like that, though.
No, I just have never found any success there.
How big's your email list right now?
Well, it's shrinking because we're scrubbing it like crazy. So right now it's at 3,800.
I mean, tell me how many emails you have though, total, ever.
Oh, ever?
Yeah, I don't scrub. I just let them unsubscribe. But then we upload our entire list for Facebook ads. So like, even if you unsubscribe, I can still send ads to you, and then you might remind me and get back on my list. I have
no idea because I don't ever look at it like that.
No, yeah.
I know. I don't know.
They just unsubscribed from your list. They didn't say they didn't like you. So like that list is an asset that you can put on Facebook ads, and like it's all people that have heard of you before and they remember you and they're like,
Yeah, it's always great for retargeting.
Always great for retargeting.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Why are you scrubbing your list?
Just because, with active campaign, once you go over a certain number, you have to pay more to have that, to have that subscriber list. So to me, if they're not opening the emails, there's no point in having them on the list.
Yeah, I forget that because Kajabi's unlimited and we have never have to pay anything different. Like you can just do whatever forever. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Is that a big tier jump on active campaign?
What's that?
Is it like a big jump? Like if you have some?
Yeah, like I just because we started doing it and I just changed my thing on active campaign. It was like I think I saved myself $3,200 a year.
Holy crap!
Yeah, it's a lot of money.
I can't believe companies are still charging per subscribers because like Kajabi just like it doesn't matter. Like you just have as many as you want. But I don't know. Maybe they got. I know active campaign has a lot more automations and stuff, but it's very complicated. Okay, cool. All right. So yeah, how many members you got right now?
About 210.
Good. Not, and they're paying different price points, I'm sure. Like
yeah, about 60. Some of those are lifetime members. So
actual paying monthly is more like about 150.
Yeah, and well, I don't even know if it's that high because we've got quarterly people and you've got the people still paying.
Yeah. Podcast is weekly.
Yep.
What are you hosting on?
Libsyn.
Using dynamic ad insertion?
Yes, thanks to you.
What are you promoting in opt-in?
I have different ads that run. So yeah, I have 3 different opt-in ads that we rotate through.
All right. Let's talk about offer. I think what you should do, and this is, this is definitely consulting, but it's also like just talking about strategy here.
Mm-hmm.
I think that you should do a monthly webinar to sell your coaching straight up.
Okay.
Because it's your biggest ticket. It can drive revenue. It's the ceiling, not the floor, right? Like, and like how many clients can you handle each month in that?
About 7.
Great. Okay. So I'm just trying to like imagine how the funnel would work, because like imagine if you promoted that's the whole point of a story pitch, is to do a webinar to pitch something, right? Or get on a stage and pitch something, right? Because that is going to convert the most, period. Done deal, right? Like it's just going to promote the most. And the webinar that I structured that I'm doing now is a little bit longer than normal webinars. It's like about 3 hours is what our goal is. But like I just did one for someone else recently pitching their product, and we did like $250,000, and we only had 600 people on the thing. So like it's designed to be high converting, high cash, and then like you can downsell anyone that doesn't buy after, right?
Yeah.
Like so the goal would be get 50 to 100 people on, sell 5 of those people, probably like a 4K, you would do 5K and discount at $1,000 or something for that webinar, right? Get a couple of those, because you're going to use that 2-3 hours to get them like screw buying a course and hoping they take it and getting used to you. You know what I mean? And then like then anyone else that comes to the webinar, once the cart closes, you can hit them with other things, right? Like you can hit them with something else. Like you could hit them with, hey, sorry, coaching wasn't the time right now for you, but you could join my membership. Hey, sorry, coaching wasn't done right now. Sorry, you didn't want to join the membership, but here's some courses if you want to look at them. And like, basically you pick up like that recurring that way, you know?
Yeah.
Especially when revenue's down, you want to hit revenue hits, you know? Ebb and flow. You can totally, and the thing about the way I design the story pitch is there's elements to it. It's like Legos. It doesn't matter what the offer is at the end. Like you could totally do another webinar that pitched the membership once you could pitch coaching with the same exact story we're going to write, right? And that might even be a strategy is like, hey, you know, in 3 weeks I'm going to do coaching, and then in 3 weeks I'm going to do the membership, and then 3 weeks I'm going to do coaching, and then 3 weeks into the membership. So you have this nice ebb and flow, but basically once a month where you're putting all of your email list, all of your podcast ads into filling up a training of some kind, a free training. And then you can totally pitch that at the end. I hate the resource hub idea right now. I don't understand why it's any different than the masterclass thing. I get that there's a bundle and you can pitch it, but like it's either that or the masterclasses to me. It's like just put all the masterclasses in one thing for $2.99 maybe or something. I don't know exactly where that like fits in. But
it's almost, if you want to create a buyer, you know, like the resource hub, it's almost like you just put a tripwire funnel in and do something really low ticket.
Yeah. And like throw everything. I mean, your master classes sell, I'm sure, but like, you know, like just bundle them together and every once in a while for a deal. Like make that your once a month email deal. Like how many master classes do you have?
Well, technically I have 5. I usually teach 4 a year, but I have 5.
Yeah. If there's recordings, the master classes are the master classes like more like workshops. It's like a cohort workshop series. Is that what that really is? That's not a course.
It was. So last year it was, and it has been for the last year, where I teach it using kind of actually your style, where it's like I teach a section of it, they work, then they come back, we do Q&A, then I teach another section, you know, like that
classroom stuff.
But But this last year I started recording them. And so what I'm selling right now is you get access to the recordings for 60 days, and you can upgrade and get access to 3 group coaching sessions with me. So I release them, like you get part 1, week 1, part 2, week 2, part 3, week 3. And then you can upgrade. And so week 2, you can do a Q&A session with me where you can ask all the questions from week 1 and so on.
This is a very complicated funnel.
I know.
Yeah, it's like crazy complicated. How long is your coaching for? If I pay $5K, what do I get?
You get a 5-hour VIP day with me. You get 60 days access of Voxer and email, and you get 3 strategy sessions that all has to be completed within 90 days.
Basically 3 months of coaching.
Yeah.
All right. You get 3 months of coaching, and we're going to kick that off with a 5-hour VIP day. We're going to be together for 5 hours, right? After that, you're going to get 1 monthly session, and you're going to get 60 days of Voxer. You're going to get daily Voxer and email access, is what you're going to say. You only give them, why is it 60 days for that and only 90 days for
originally I really wanted them to complete it within 60 days. Like I wanted them to do their 3 sessions within 60 days of their VIP, but I'm finding that they're like, they need a little bit more. So I can add another month. That's not a huge deal.
Yeah, that's what because I mean, honestly, they're not going to Voxer you or email you that much in that last month. Let's be honest. That's not what's going to happen. So it's not going to be that much. Offering the month is way more perceived value than what's actually going to come out of your time and effort, especially if you're block timing those Voxer and email messages. That's a great offer. And then, I mean, I would think the goal at the end of that would be to get them in the membership.
Well, I do give them 3 months of membership as part of that.
Yeah, they're in the membership and then they can continue it basically.
Yeah. So for people who continue, they get a discounted rate to stay in the membership.
How much do you make on those workshops? How many people are usually in them?
Between 15 and 20 people.
So at most, this is making 10K.
Yeah.
What I would maybe do, again, you don't have to do anything, right? If you sell 2 coaching packages a month, you're making 10K. You know what I'm saying? Like, I would probably, and this seems like a marketing thing. Like you're going to have to market it. You're going to have to sell it. You got to sell 5 different things. Like I would almost like not strategically do those for, just imagine that didn't exist. Let's just imagine right now. We're just imagining no pressure, no stress, no anxiety. Like, let's say that every month, okay, if you want to make 10K off of these workshops, you do them 4 times a year. That's great. That's $10,000. That's 4 times, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's 40 grand. Or just do a webinar every month, sell 2 coaching packages. That's $120,000. Period.
Yeah.
You focus on that. So you just traded 120,000 for 40,000.
Got it.
That's what you just did. And then all your efforts are to sell this one thing. Sell these freaking coaching packages, right? Because that's what they do. And then you have the membership, but the membership can be a front end, of course, but it probably needs to be a back end. Like the real goal is they sign up for 5,000 and then they automatically pay you $100 a month on the way out the door 90 days later. So you're never losing a client on the backside either. You know, if we can get this up to 5 to 7 sales a month, like rotating, that would be amazing, right? If we could get it up to 5 sales a month of the 5K, and then you're picking up 500 a month on the back end of all your coaching packages, that's going to stack. You'll probably, all you need is 20 people to do this over time, and you'll be making $10,000 a month instead of $10,000 selling the workshops, right? So now you don't even have that. And then you have the videos of all these workshops, right? You have that?
I almost have all the videos. I'm a few, like, again, because I wasn't pre-recording them before, so I'm still getting my recordings done. I guess I have half of them done.
Okay, cool. What I would probably do is then, if you still want to do the resource hub strategy, right? Then like once a month, I'd be like, these used to be $500. It would cost you $2,500 to do this. $299 lifetime access. Screw the year. And I would just throw all those videos into a place, and every once in a while someone can buy it, and that becomes a really good tripwire for, hey, do you need coaching? Because then they're going to like have all your workshops, but they're not going to watch them. They're just not. It's not going to happen. That would be something you could do, is like once a month, like your 4th of July sale, your Black Friday sale. It's like, was $2,500, now $299 forever, right? Like that's a way better offer. There's no consistency to it. You're only going to renew around 10 to 16% of any annual things anyway. It's irrelevant. So you might as well do the lifetime deal so that like 10 more people buy it up front. So that gives you a monthly email promotion, or I call these vacation promotions now, because that's when I do my email things, is when I go on vacation. So if I go to the Bahamas, like that's when I set up a bunch of emails to sell crap, you know?
Yeah.
But like, you know, it's your monthly little email thing. I don't feel like working this week. I'm just going to schedule some emails on Monday, and I'm just going to not do the rest of the thing. Then the other part of the month is get 50 people to 100 people on this freaking webinar, tell your story correctly and pitch your coaching, pick up 1 to 2 clients, even if there's discovery calls on the back end of it, you know. But if you sell 3, if you discounted 1,000, sell 3 every month, you're making 12 just off that. And then you got your membership. That's not a big ask, because you have an audience, you've got people, and it's just about getting the pitch down so they'll actually buy it, right? Like I think you've convinced yourself that people have to follow you and buy a little tripwire and be with you for a year to buy your thing. That's not true. They just have to know about you, come to your webinar, and then 3 hours later, they're going to give you $3,000 to $5,000, pretty much, and it's going to go volume. So that you can again, the membership kind of would live in the front end and the back end, right? How much do you discount them? Do you give it to them for like $100 a month or something
For the membership?
Like if they continue with the membership after coaching.
For the VIP people, I give it to them for $67 a month.
Yeah, let's just say that's going to be like 99, 97. Because that's good. Once you pass anytime you pass 100 either direction, nobody sees the rest of the numbers. It's things are less than $100 or more than $100, or they're less than $200 or more than $200. So it's like, hey, this is normally $147 a month, but I'll give it to you for less than 100, like $97, right? If you want to stay in the membership and keep coming to the group things and all that community stuff, that's probably better downsell right there. Yeah. And it's more on the front end. Definitely. Members are members. I mean, that's good. How many people in your membership have you coached? What percentage do you think of the paying customers you have now have you actually sold a coaching package to?
I have no idea. If I had to guess, I would say 20%.
Interesting. So there's still 80% of people paying you money that haven't bought coaching. So we just got to take, shots.
Honestly, it might be higher. It could be 30, 40. I don't know.
How do you sell coaching now?
How I sell coaching now is people are like, I need coaching with you, Nikki. That's how I sell it. It's on the website. they hear other people talk about, oh, I'm a VIP client of Nikki's or whatever. And then they're like, how do I get to be a VIP client? Every once in a while, I'll put out an offer. Like I did put out an offer a couple months ago for a VIP package. I was actually shocked at who bought it because it wasn't anybody who I thought would buy it. It was people I hadn't ever coached before.
A good rule of thumb I have always found is if I ask people to give me money, they will. So like,
I know.
Yeah.
I think for a long time I was selling. For the last couple of years, I have sold so many strategy sessions, which all of that was launched from that deal that you and I did back in 2020.
And it was great back then, but
And
all things kind of run their course.
I sold like 150 strategy sessions that year just on that one deal that you and I did.
Yeah. How much were those? I can't remember.
Well, we did that lifetime for $9.99 and then they got, or $9.90, and they got 3 coaching sessions with me. But then those people, probably at least 20% of them bought at least another 1 to 3 more like $1,000 packages. So, and I still have people that buy the like 3 more, they buy 3.
That's a strategy too. That's another strategy.
And they buy 3 and then we, so I've been selling those between $1,200 and $1,600, depending on the offer, for 3 sessions.
I mean, that's another strategy too, is you can go on a webinar and you can sell 10 of those for $9.97 like on a deal. These were $1,600, now they're $9.97. And then you can sell coaching to those people. There's the angle there if you want to do it. What's your favorite thing to sell? I mean, besides the membership, because it's more passive-ish.
Strategy sessions.
Okay.
They're just they're light lifting for me.
Right now you're charging how much?
Well, on the website, they're $795 a piece, but I usually sell them as a 3-pack, anywhere from $1,200 to $1,600, like $1,190 to $1,500
right now. All right, we'll just say 15. Yeah, I really want to eliminate all these options. Like, I think that's a problem. Like, because I don't think it's not that it's a problem because you've sold everything, but like, I don't think you know what to market at any minute. Like, you don't know what you're like. That might be where you're frozen a little bit, and you're not really like telling people about things because you're just stuck. You're like, what do I promote today? I got 20 different things I could do. I got bundles.
I just feel like things aren't working, and so I'm like, here, let me throw this thing against the wall. Let me try this. Let me try this. That's how I've been the last
1,500 year. That gets you 3 calls.
Yeah.
How long are the calls?
50 minutes.
But we threw in lifetime access to some trainings or something, or
we gave them. That was when we did lifetime access to the society.
Oh yeah. That's right. Which makes sense because you've already got monthly members. If you can get LTV up front, that'd be better. You know what I'm saying? 3 calls, 1 hour. So it's not that much different than the 5K offer, really.
The 5K offer it's a lot heavier lifting for me because that 5-hour intensive is a lot, and the Voxer access, because I know how I use Voxer with you, but I will say how my clients use Voxer with me is, in some of them, intense.
Yeah, you're not setting proper boundaries coming into it though. Probably you got to tell them, hey, you're allowed 1 question a day max. It has to be 3 minutes or less. You got to set some parameters on that, and get 2 replies or something. And then you've got to only check it at like 9 a.m. so they know that they're trained when they can check it. That would be you got whatever we do as Voxer access to Freon. We need to set some rules up because they don't know the rules and they're wondering the rules.
I'm getting a little better, but you're right. Like I need stronger boundaries around the Voxer access because it can be a lot.
Yeah, I don't no notifications on Voxer. I don't open it except for once a day. Period. Like that's, and I let people know that. Like I just tell them, like, I'm not checking it except once a day. I'm not giving you a time that I'm checking it because I might check it in the morning or the evening, and I'm definitely not checking it on the weekends. And you're going to get like a 1 or 2 minute reply, and then everything else will be forwarded to the next time we talk. Right. So it's for check-ins, it's not an extra coaching call. That's not what this is. Right. It's so you're like, hey, Shane, do you think I should do this slide? Yeah, you should. That's what Voxer should be for. And if they're using it for more than that, then they're taking advantage of you, period. So you got to we'll reframe that, because the offer is just really important, because we got to figure out where we want to go. And you feel like people pay that 1,500-ish price pretty easily, the 3-month thing?
People who have been exposed to me, yes. Like people who are in this society and they're like, I want Nikki's answers, and I don't want everybody else to hear what she's coaching me on.
Mm-hmm. So, I mean, it's either selling basically like, I mean, that's a $9.97 is a very easy product to sell on a webinar, right? Now, but let's look at this again. Let's zoom out. You probably because you want to, it has to be discounted in the right way on a webinar, because it's got to be a really good deal, you know? Mm-hmm. So basically, if you sold 10 of those in a month, that would create $10,000 in revenue, plus whatever's on the back end for upsells and crap like that, right? It sounds like that we need to get this producing 10K a month on top of the membership right now, right?
Yeah.
That's what it sounds like. And then, so you need 10 people to do that, and you'll make 10K. You'll create 30 hours of work, right? Because they're 3-hour sessions. How long do they have to get the sessions in?
The rule is they have 12 months to use those sessions.
Ooh, so there's a long tail involved here, right?
Well, yeah, and I mean, I can change that, but I've done 12 months, honestly, because what happens is people use their first 2, and then they save that last one. They're like, I'm not going to use it until I'm in dire situation with Nikki, and then
they got 60 days. Use
but
it or
a
lose
lot
it.
of people let that last one expire, because they're like, they save it. And we do send reminders to them of like, hey, you need to get this session scheduled.
Do they get mad?
No, what I do, so this is what I do when they expire, is I tell them they can rebuy their sessions at half price.
Yeah. I feel like you have the most complicated funnel offers in the history of all. And then on a Tuesday, when Mercury is in retrograde, I give them $5 off. Like, that's what it feels like. Everything, like my brain's trying to like figure out like what is happening right now, like what's going on.
And Nikki, sorry to interrupt, but Nikki, what we've learned is with all the coaching that we do is, we sell them more coaching knowing that they're only going to use 50% of it, and it expires, it goes away. And sorry about that. And
you pay the full price. Yeah. We stopped doing all these like crazy situations, because at some point our job as the coach is to hold them accountable as an adult.
Yeah, and, I get it. I totally agree. I'm on board with that. I don't have to do that piece.
Yeah, I think if we do that strategy, then it's 60 days. You got 60 days to use it, or it's gone. Period. That's it. You got to get on the calendar. Because then it's better for your student to get all 3 calls in and go implement. That's what's going to actually move the needle for them. And it's better for them to have a deadline that's looming, so they can take more action. And also, it doesn't matter if some people use it or don't. If you have 100 people with 12 sessions, and you're sitting there wondering, oh my God, are they all going to come back for these sessions in December? That is stress in the back of your mind, whether you're feeling it or not. Like if you got 50 people that just have calls out there, I mean, and you're like, man, what if I sell more and like there's more calls coming? Like that's not a good way to, you need business to roll better on those strategy sessions. But here's my point though. So my real point here is on what we want to sell, because if you can't sell you can sell the membership sometimes, but not all the time. You need an anchor thing that's going to create a lot of cash fast, right? Every month at least. So like if you have a strategy session that's $1,500 or $1,000 on the $500 off, whatever. It's usually average. Yeah. The deal, you got to sell 10 of those. That creates 30 hours of work over the next 60 days. It's still a pretty good trade. I mean, because you're going to do another one the next month. So really you're going to have 2 of these any given time rotating if we put a cap on it for 60 days. So it would create 60 hours of work over 2 months. That's not bad, right? Or if you sell 2 coaching packages, or 3, we'll say 3, because that'll make $12,000. All right. And if you sold 6 of those, that would be 6 times 5. That's still just 30 hours, even though they're more intense on those sessions. And then you would have 6 times 3, 18. So you would create $24,000 in revenue, and you would spend Because they get how many? They would get 3 months. They get 2 strategy sessions basically, right? Like at the first one in the first month is 5 hours, and then they get a 1 hour over each month following. That's what coaching gets, right? That basically
They get a 5-hour session, and then they have 3 more coaching sessions to use. So it's 8 hours time that they get.
Gotcha. I see what you're saying.
Plus they get that Voxer email access, which again, without my like real strict parameters, it's a ton of time. It's at least an hour a month, but probably more.
What if you okay, no one who ever buys this will know what you sold in the past. Let's always remember that.
I get it. I'm so down with like restructuring this.
What if the coaching package was $3,000? And then what if the coaching package got them a 3-hour intensive? Let's screw 5 hours. 3 hours is a lot. They're going to be tired after 3 hours, right? You can get a lot of value in there for 3 hours. All right. And that's month 1. Now, and then they get 1 call a month. So month 2, you get a strategy session, 1 hour. And then month 3, they get a strategy session. That's 1 hour. And that is basically a chance to resell them more stuff. Another $3,000. Okay. And then they can have Voxer with boundaries. Don't even tell them email. Have to use Voxer, right? And that is once a day, 3-minute messages, and reply. Anything longer, save for the next session, or bring to Q&A that is included in your coaching package, because you're going to include 3 months of membership. Right? That gets them 3 months of membership. Now they have to bring it to the Q&A, right? You got to, and then you check this once per day. So now the intensive is not so big a deal. We're actually only doing 5 total hours of actual meeting the whole time. So if you sell 3 of these, you've made $10,000, basically $9,000, right? Which is the same. You only need 3 humans to buy this, and you'll make about 10 grand. You get 4, you got 12. It's great. And you've only created 20 hours of work over 2 months, 3 months, basically. Right. So that really spaces it out. And then at the end of it, you can discount $7 a month for membership. That's it. Instead of freaking out and trying to throw so much mud at the wall, just sell the hell out of this. Like, just sell this a lot. Right. Like, do 2 webinars a month. That's not a big deal. Right. And, you can, we'll get your story pitch down perfect. And the way I teach the story pitch is you can rotate, you can make it different, because you're going to always do the story pitch. But then what we do now is we do like a normal webinar, storytelling, then we pitch, but then we come back and teach for another 45 minutes, literally teach something good, like over deliver, and then we repitch and do a Q&A again. So like that way you can really teach, you can change the topic of the webinar basically every time. Like you can rotate through different subjects, but your story is the same. The pitch is the same every time, but it gives you a new excuse to do that. I mean, honestly, if you did that twice a month, you'd only need to pick up like 3 people, and you could probably pick up 10K in revenue every month rotating, and it freaking is capped. It's over in 90 days. It's just freaking over. Right. So you're going to rotate people out, and you're just going to get rid of them. And members on the public side are just a great thing now, because like that's just a lead. That's your tripwire. What do you do at the 5-hour thing?
It depends on the client. Every session is different. So it's like, where are they in their business? And so we work on anything from crafting their offers to, setting pricing for them to, creating a promotional email sequence. Like I do everything.
Yeah, you can remember, they're paying for access for you, not time with you. Got to remember that in coaching.
Well, that's what they get. It's just whatever they need. Like I'm just going to pour into them and whatever they need. So
do that in 3 hours instead of 5. Done. Now that's not a heavy lift anymore. Right. Yeah. That's kind of like an energy. It's fun. We've already been here an hour. Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's going to go fast. And then all you're trying to get them is to their first step. So you just got to get them moving, and then get them a path. And then you give them a 4-week plan to the next strategy session. Go do this. and you can knock those out. Like those, that's like think about this. You could do 2 of those in a day, what one used to feel like. Like you could literally go 9 to 12 with someone, have a lunch break, go freaking 1 to 4, and you're out the gate, you know, and you've done 2 of these like you could sell those on a Saturday and be done with those on a Tuesday. And that's it. Now all you got is 2 1 hours and some Voxer with those people. And that price is really easy to sell on a webinar. And that doesn't mean, for the context of StoryPitch, and like, you know, if we're going to put energy in getting people at a webinar, we're going to have 20, 30 people, 50 people, 100 people there. And we try to sell, you know, 3 or 4 of these, 5 of these, 10 of these. I mean, I closed 16% on a webinar recently. So like you can hit webinars really good. And the good thing about that is, like, if a webinar doesn't, like, you can do 1 a month, like on the calendar, right? Like last week of the month. And then, like, if it doesn't hit good, just do another one in 2 weeks. Change the teaching part and just advertise it again. You take another swing. And then you just have this one thing to think about. Like, all this other crap is just like so much. You can't, but what if you only had to sell this, right? Like, you could totally sell the crap out of that.
Yeah.
And you have charged $5,000 in coaching. So you're going to be able to say, it's a different offer. Like, I've sold coaching in the past for $5,000. Today's webinar, $29.97. You're not saying you're selling the exact same thing, right? And we can bulk this up too. Like, you could throw in my on-demand workshops. Just throw a bonus in there that's a little different than the last offer. Anything you've got recorded, basically, just throw it in the library. And now we can pitch this. We can totally story pitch this. Like, get it out there. And it's like, look, like, what a deal! You're getting $2,000 off for my. I used to charge $2,000. This is the only coaching package I have now, and you're going to get $2,000 off my old prices. Like, who's not doing that? That's 40% off. And then I know people buy those sessions for like $1,500, but is there really? I mean, if you really want help, is there a difference in $1,500 and $3,000? Right? Like, we got to be able to sell 3 at $29.97. Like, if someone, like, normally people buy those 3 sessions right now, but like, they're still getting, you're still only selling 3 sessions this way. It's just one of them is a little longer, right? So you got it in your brain. You're like, well, what's the real problem with sessions? It is length sometimes, but really it's just like, that has to be a scheduled appointment, right? There's 3 days that's going to be a scheduled appointment. Well, you're selling 3 sessions for $3,000 instead of 3 sessions for the other one. You got the one's 3 hours. That's it. So it's like we hybrided the one program with the other, and we just eliminate both of them, and now we just have one.
Yeah.
You know? What do you think?
I like it.
I do too. Let's pitch this. I think this is clean.
Pitch this. I love this as a pitch.
Yes. And I want you to not think about pitching anything else for a minute, just until we get a couple of these under our belts, you know? All this other stuff, I think at the end of our process, we'll come back and look at all the assets you have. You know, like, the membership's cool, but you can't pitch a membership on a webinar. It just doesn't work good. You can, but like, it's not going to stack fast enough. That takes more other time. Now we're going to get into, let's see here, avatar real quick. I only want to know about people who have bought strategy sessions and coaching.
Okay.
That's all I want to know about right now. And we'll work back through the membership. So give me a good general off the cuff overview of who is buying coaching from you, who's buying strategy sessions or that big coaching intensive.
The people who are buying that are women, business owners.
They are owners. They're entrepreneurs. They're not like other. Give me some examples of the businesses they own.
Well, when I think about my VIP clients that I just have right now, they are offering consulting or coaching services and or training.
What kind of coaching and consulting? Is it like life coaches, business coaches? Like, what kind of?
Let's see. Well, I have like one of my VIP clients right now is she offers like customer service training and coaching on, like, for brick and mortar. I have a VIP client right now that they do, her company does like social media posting for interior designers. And I have another VIP client that does she teaches oncology to pharmacists, like oncology training for pharmacists that want to like move into oncology. And then I have, another client that does, like, she goes in and does data gathering and helping people decide where to spend their time and money in a like mid-size company that's trying to decide what their offer should be and what they should eliminate.
Yeah, so it's very much entrepreneurs supporting other entrepreneur kind of thing. It's like
Yeah.
you know what I'm saying? It's like it's very consulting heavy, it seems like. Seems like more consulting than coaching. Like it's very consulting-ish. So that's an important word. People, do they call themselves coaches? Anyone call themselves a coach? Or is it more just like, no, this is what we do to serve people?
Yeah, I mean, some of them call themselves coaching, like leadership coaching. But yeah, I would say it's coaching / consulting that's my primary.
And that's VIPs. Like, are strategy sessions similar? Are they more?
I mean, strategy, honestly, they're all over the board as far as like what my consistent like strategy session people offer.
How much sales training do you actually do for these people?
Well, when you say sales training,
well, like when Sales Maven Society feels like that's all your main focus is making more sales, right? Like,
yeah. Well, here's what I will say is tons of my clients, especially this last year, you always say you're a sales coach, Nikki, but really you're a business coach, because I give them everything. So I wouldn't feel comfortable marketing myself as a business coach. I like marketing myself as a sales coach. Well,
everything leads to sales. So it's kind of like the fulcrum. I mean, it's fine. If you're working on someone's offer, it's to help them sell more. It's like, it's all part of it. The sales process starts at discovery. So it's not like, you know what I'm saying? It's like,
Yeah. So
it doesn't sound like you're coaching too much. Like you're a bit, I think people confuse business coach with sales coach. You know what I'm saying? Why are you not comfortable with that when your customers are telling you that?
Well, mostly because I think there's a ton of business coaches out there that say they can coach on sales, but they actually can't. Like saying to somebody, well, you just got to follow up is not sales coaching.
No.
But telling somebody, this is what you say, and here's why you say it, and here's what is going to happen, and here's what you do next, to me is sales coaching.
Yeah, it could also be, sales coaching for business women. Like that's more of a holistic, like what you actually do, right? Because these are business women, entrepreneurs, sales coaching for business women. Cool. All right. Tell me, and how old are they?
I would say most of them are in their, I'm going to say late 30s to early 50s to mid 50s.
Married, families, or
most of them are married. Many, and I would say a good majority of them have kids.
Are you married?
I am.
Do you have kids?
I don't.
Okay, that's cool. Because in the story, most of them are married that are coming to you. It'll be very important at some point to talk about being married. Does that make sense? Even if it's just a throwaway thing, like, I got married in this thing and I got into business. Like, it's just like one sentence like that can make the difference in someone relating to you enough to buy a $3,000 product, So like, and some people leave crap like that out. They just leave their personal details out, but it's like, oh, 90% of my people coming to me are married. I should definitely say I'm married. Like, that's exactly why our podcast says for family focused entrepreneurs, because when we first started out, every email we got in was like, oh, finally a family who puts their family before their business. It's not these not Gary V people or whatever. You know what I mean? Like, so I was like, oh, we need that on the front page of the podcast right now, because it has that word, just that word is enough. Yeah. Okay, cool. So late 30s, early 50s. What else can you tell me about the avatar? Just it'll emerge later.
I would say that my people are absolute experts at what they do, but have either no background having ever sold. Like, they're really, really good at what they do, but they're super uncomfortable with this concept of selling.
They're pizza chefs. They're good at making the pizza.
Yeah.
But they don't know how to sell the pizzas.
Yeah. And I would also say that I tend to attract quite a few people that come from a corporate background. And that's my story, right? So I think that is interesting to them of like, oh, I'm not just talking to somebody who's like, I had a bunch of kids and then I just decided to become a sales coach.
Did you get married before your corporate life or after or during?
I mean, I've been married before, so I'm on my second marriage,
That's
and
fine.
we just married a few years ago, but we've been together for almost 20 years. So we've only been married
Well,
for,
that's not well.
yeah.
That doesn't matter. You've been
Okay.
with your partner for 20 years.
Yeah.
You can massage all this like the 20 partner, corporate background. I'm just doing some notes here for myself. I realized I'm an absolute, I love that word, expert at what I do. You became an entrepreneur. Were you in sales and corporate?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. If you can make people realize, if you can make them adopt the fact that I am an absolute expert and the only thing that I need is Nikki to help me sell this stuff. Like if you can give them that identity during a webinar of they are the expert, if that, like, I don't know if you've ever said that to your people, but like if they adopt that, like I am an absolute, I am this, like that's one of the themes that we're gonna work on a little bit. Anything else about your avatar?
Quite a few of my avatar they've spent money on lots of other things, but haven't really seen. Most of them will say, like, I've worked with tons of other people. I've never received such like specific what to do's and how to do it, and or the access they get to me. That's a big thing that comes out of the society, but also out of my private coaching clients. They're like, I can't believe how much access we get to you.
Mm-hmm. Have you ever had that experience where you bought something and didn't get it back when you started being an entrepreneur?
I mean, I'm a really good coach.
Yeah, you're like me. You're going to get your money back, like no matter what. Like you're hell or high water. Yeah. Okay. We'll try to implement. We'll try to. That's a fear we'll need to definitely.
Here's one of the things I say all the time because I want to attract these people. I always say implementers get results and my people implement.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to work with people who are like, yeah, that's super interesting and fun. Yeah, interesting, and never do anything with it. So my people make money back on the stuff they work with me on because I'm just not interested in working with people who aren't going to implement my suggestions.
Well, the way to say that actually is, doesn't it suck when you hire a coach and they don't even tell you what to do? Like you're an implementer. It's not that you don't want to work with them. You say you're an implementer.
Yeah.
You want things to implement. That's the difference. Like I give people, and we will show that through a testimonial is what we will do. We'll show like this, like Cindy came to me and she had bought lots of coaching before and they just told her, go call more people to make more sales. And they didn't tell her anything to implement. My people, listen, you're an implementer and I know you are hiring me to be an implementer. So Cindy hired me and I gave her exact steps to implement. And now Cindy did XYZ. So like, that's how that's how you can remove that. That's how we can address that concern and we can do that. All right, cool. All right, that's enough for now. So let's talk about the basic outline. So I'm going to teach you the outline first. I'm going to put it on here and then we're going to go back and fill it in. Okay.
Okay.
So we're not going to do these today, but we're going to do permissions. All right. So there's like things you have to do at the beginning of a webinar, right? So we do substance, style, speaker, sell. Actually going to sell your product within the first 5 minutes of the webinar. Okay.
Perfect. I love it.
Amazing. Right. All right. And then we have a testimonial bridge. Not what we're going to work on today. Again, this will be in the second session. Okay. So what this is like your best achievable testimonial. Okay. So a lot of people wait too long to do testimonials, but the testimonial, you can do a testimonial really early, especially after you tell them you have something for sale that you're going to tell them about later, because you want to give them hope that's not you immediately. It's kind of like how they show, like, you ever seen a movie where there's a part before the title, like you don't really understand what's going on, and then at the end of the movie they show it again and you're like, oh gosh, that's amazing. Like that's kind of what this does. It kind of like, oh, she helps other people do something, that's amazing. But it's also not like your best testimonial, like the most successful person that ever came through the Flip Lifestyle community is Brooke Castillo, right? She made $55 million last year. I can't tell you about her 5 minutes into the webinar. Like I have to have something that's like right around the corner. Like, you know, like Christy worked with me and improved her sales 300%. And she didn't know how to sell before. Like that's reasonable. You can think, oh, that's cool. You know, like I can probably improve my sales that much. So we'll start talking about that. And that leads us into your story. We got to get your story. Your story is going to crush all the objections, right? So I'm going to go through it, and then we're going to come back and fill in some gaps today, more like an outline. And we will be able to tell like a mini version of your story like today, but we're not going to tell your whole story. We can only tell the parts that move people toward the sale. That's what matters on stage, right? All right. So the first one I call Once Upon a Time. And that's just like the beginning of your story. Like my story is I was a school teacher in Southeast Kentucky. You've heard me say that 1,000 times, right? It's just setting the stage for how in the world did you end up here? This makes no sense, right? Once upon a time. And then something changes. And we want to try to tie, we're going to look at a moment where we can really like drive emotion, because we want them to feel some really weird emotions fast. Like we're going to be like kind of funny up here somewhere, like probably here. We usually inject some humor here. And then here we're going to make them feel some kind of bad emotion. If I can make you laugh and I can make you cry in the first 10 minutes, you're going to buy, right? That's probably what's going to happen. You're going to move forward. Okay. And a lot of times this is like a problem appears, like not getting too deep into it right now, but like, why did you leave corporate?
I mean, how deep do you want me to go into it?
Just was it good or bad?
I mean, I can tell there's a couple different stories around it, but the story I usually tell is that I realized that there was something missing in my life.
Okay. Like lack of fulfillment.
Yeah. Well, I didn't know what it was, but turns out it was passion. We'll
come back to that. Right. So like there's going to be a moment where that's and and how many of these women are coming to you with that exact same frequency?
That always resonates, because they're always like, oh yeah, that's why I'm doing what I'm doing now.
All right. So then we have a place. So I call it So I Decided. One thing I have found doing what I do now, and what I've done especially over the last 3 years, I've been speaking all over the country in these big audiences. I have to be relatable first, but then I have to model that I made a decision to change. We're not really selling your product to them that day. We have to teach them how to make a decision. That's what stops most people from buying. Oh, I just don't know if I should buy this. Screw that. I decided. That's going to be an important point of the story pitch, right? My story worked out because I decided, right? So we're going to teach them that. And then we're going to go through a series of action steps. I call this Badada. Because of that, I took action. So after you decide, what do you have to do? You have to take action. Mm-hmm. So we're going to do at least 3 of these. This is like driving the story forward. Badada. Right? Okay. And there may be more of those. It just depends how the story unfolds in your thing. And now we got to get them to victory. This is kind of like the result they want. So it might be more, we'll come back, more sales, entrepreneur, businesswoman, better business, whatever you coach. We'll figure that out. Like, what's the ultimate thing that most of your clients want, right? We have to show you either getting that or getting that for somebody else, or they won't believe it. And it's better if, like, you got it. You got out of corporate, you started your own business. Like you're going to be able to really model what you can do for people. So that's victory. And then this is the most overlooked part of like any like presentation is like, why do you help others? Right? It's I started helping others do the same thing. Because like the hard part is, let's like a guy selling stock education. Well, you're such a good stock market educator person. If you're so good with the stock market, why are you up here teaching me how to do it? Mm-hmm. It doesn't matter why, but you got to tell them why. And it can't just be because I know this stuff. Like that's not going to fly at all, Mm-hmm. So usually what I do here is I call this the first testimonial, literally the first person you help do anything. We can take creative liberties and spin this together. This is not a linear timeline. We can bounce around. It's not like a keynote where you're trying to drive the timeline forward. It's not like a workshop where you're teaching math class where you're building on top of everything. We can reshape this story, and one of those boditas could go back to when you were 15. It doesn't matter, right? We're just trying to hit the highlight points, right? But this will be literally the first person you ever helped get a result. Don't just tell your best result, tell your first result, right?
Yeah.
And then that will lead to the second testimonial bridge. You got to get out of your story. We got to pivot back to them. There's got to be an entry point and an exit point. And I choose to use testimonials for both, right?
Okay.
So basically, by the time you get to here, right, you've already told 4 testimonials if you count yourself. So that's all we're doing is just showing exactly what's happening like the whole time, right? This can be 1 to 3 testimonials before the pitch, but one of them is your least likely success story. That's the key. That's the first one. I use Kareem Murato. Like Kareem, do you know Kareem? Have you heard of Kareem before?
I don't know.
Let me tell you Kareem's story real quick. This is exactly how I tell it on my story pitch. All right. Kareem Murato was an immigrant from Guatemala who came to America with nothing but her husband, the clothes on her back, a suitcase in her hand, and she couldn't even speak English. In fact, she learned how to speak English working at a Kmart, reading labels and talking to customers. But she learned how to speak English so well that she got into college. She got her GED, she got into college, and she was going to become a Spanish high school teacher. That was her American dream. But then she found out about this thing called the Flipped Lifestyle podcast. And she learned that people in America were allowed to start their own business using their skills. And she said, well, I know how to speak Spanish. Why couldn't I teach Spanish to kids all over the country with an online business? So she went to her guidance counselor or her college counselor and said, I want to start a business. And he looked at her and said, no, you're lucky you've made it this far. You're going to risk everything if you take this chance. You need to stay right where you are and be a teacher and be lucky that you're going to do that. Well, thank God Kareem didn't listen to naysayers and haters and doubters who told her online business wasn't real. She joined Flipped Lifestyle. She built an online business, and her best month ever was $17,000 in a single month teaching Spanish to homeschool kids across the country. What's your excuse? So, like, if you're anything better starting in life than an immigrant from Guatemala who couldn't speak English, you don't get to make an excuse after I pitch here in just a minute. So that's what we're looking for. We're looking for the person you've helped that's the least likely to succeed, like someone who came in, no clue of business, right? We're just crushing you don't have to answer every objection on a webinar. You just have to take away the ability for them to make the excuse. And when they see the first testimonial and your story and this person, you now can say you have no excuse. If she can do it, you can do it. So it eliminates the need to handle all those objections. So you'll think about that. You'll think about your best objection there. All right. Then what we do is then we pitch. And this is just straight stack pitch. It's Russell Brunson stuff. Like, it's the best way to do it. Then we do Q&A and we teach. Then we do our final Q&A. So people stop buying. This whole process we're going to build. All right. Now, what we're going to focus on today for your outline is just this part. Just this part right here. Okay. And then in between sessions for next week, you're going to go through and fill some of this out. All right. So let's talk about, let's start at something changes. Okay. Tell me about the moment where you realized something was wrong in your corporate life.
Okay. So the story I usually tell is I come from the background of selling technology, and in technology, you do a ton of trade shows. And as a matter of fact, one year I counted, I did 100 trade shows in 1 year, which how is that even possible?
Yikes.
And I found myself one Saturday morning in San Jose, California, setting up again for another trade show. And as I was setting up my booth, I looked around and I just went like booth to booth to booth to booth. And I realized every single other booth that was setting up, I knew somebody at that booth. And in some ways that seemed satisfying, but at that moment, it was like this huge hole opened up inside me. And I realized I don't want to be standing here in 10 more years talking to the same people on another Saturday morning. And I realized something had to change.
Yeah. And you need to say something here like, and we'll massage this out, but and they all looked lonely and miserable. Right. And then you say things like, have you ever looked around your office and thought things look, you remember this moment? You know, like, right. All right, cool. All right, great. Okay, so that's great. So there's a seed there, right?
Yeah.
You know, so that might, you know, so that's that one. All right. Take me back before that. Like, how did you get into the corporate world?
My first corporate job came as a result of a college project where we had to go out into a company where we didn't know anybody and convince them to let us come in and interview all these different people within their company and figure out how does a company actually run and what are the departments and what does it take. And my partner and I in this college course, like our whole grade was based on this. And one of my responsibilities was to interview like their hiring and find out about their hiring practices. So I was so clever that I actually like got a newspaper. This was back when people used to put ads in the newspaper for hiring people. And so when I presented that part of the project about their hiring, at the end of our presentation, one of my classmates came up and said, "Hey, can I take that ad from you? I'm going to apply to work there." And he did, and they hired him. And then another one of my classmates who used to cheat off of all of my papers and all of my tests, he went and applied and they hired him. And I thought, if they'll hire those two guys, they'll definitely hire me. So I went and applied and got my first corporate sales job.
Do you tell that story?
I mean, I tell it sometimes if somebody asks.
You're going to tell that. Because I think what this will set up for especially women, we actually have another client has a similar story. Like, but what women stereotypically often feel like they're just doing what everybody else was supposed to do. They just did what they were supposed to do. They just, well, they did it, I'll do it, right? Or that was expected of me, so I'll do it. That's a very common theme I find with women, especially in business.
Mm-hmm.
So like being able to, you're going to really get heads nodding that way. Like, and then like, but I want you to present it as I got sucked into corporate world. I thought that was my only option. We'll flesh this out in a script, right? So, and at the end of this, I'll kind of read through it like in the story. But like, I think we go all the way back to college as a once upon a time, because I think all these professional women are going to have that coming out of school, getting into corporate kind of business mentality, working for someone else mentality. And that's then the hard part is most of the women coming for you have already quit and they're doing their own thing, right? So we're going to have to bounce around a little bit to get, because we got to finish there. We can't finish with, and you should quit your job too. You know, that's not what we're doing here. Once upon a time, I was coming out of college, newspapers got the job. They did it. That guy was an idiot. Why can't they hire me? And I got sucked into the corporate world because that's what you're supposed to do, is go work for anybody else. And then how many years had you been in the corporate world on that Saturday when you looked around and went, I am trapped?
About 17.
Okay, this is great. So then you're just basically going to go 17 years later. That's a good time jump, right? So we're just going to warp to there. We're going to be like, fast forward 17 years of up to 100 trade shows a year, right? That you're just condensing all this down, where you're just like, oh my gosh, that's 17 years of 100 trade shows a year. And like, we'll probably expand on that a little bit. And like, I'm standing there on a Saturday and I looked around and I realized that I recognized every miserable, lonely, tired face. And I realized, oh my God, 17 years from now, I'm going to still be setting up a trade show with all these miserable people if they all don't die from heart attacks first. Like, we're just going to like paint that picture. And I think our goal here is going to be more like to remind people of why they left corporate, right? Because we have to, your story is going to be really good for reminding people that something huge is at stake. A lot of these people are in the thick of their entrepreneur businesswoman journey. They're worrying about their business every day, and they may have kind of lost touch with why it's so important they succeed. Like, they know it, but we've got to pour salt in those old wounds of I'm never going back to that. And that emotion will be very powerful to make them doing that, right?
Well, and I have another story too, just to check with you to see if this is a better story, which sometimes gets the shock and awe factor. Is I remember sitting down with my vice president one time, and I was their top producing sales rep in North America for one of the largest companies in the world. And sitting down with the vice president and saying to him, like, I'm ready for more. Like, I want more. I want another challenge. And he said, well, you know, they'll never promote you. And I said, well, what do you mean? Why wouldn't they promote me? And he said, you're a woman. And that was another one of those like huge turning points for me, where I realized, like, honestly, what I took away from that is I had this philosophy that I used to say it out loud all the time. I used to say to people, if you do right by your customers and you do right by your company, they will always take care of you. And that was a moment where I realized
that's not true.
It's not true. Your company will not take care of you. They're making decisions about you that you have no control over, and there's nothing you can change.
And like, here's the danger here in this part of the story. This will have to be condensed, very tightly compressed, because you have to remember, all you're doing at this point, that is, I think I decided to do something. I decided to ask for a promotion. I'm going to add something here that I don't usually add into a story pitch. And then I realized all you're doing is preaching to the choir with that story. That story is probably not relevant for the sale, right? Okay. It might be relevant. It might be relevant to tell. I think we need to say it as a part of that salt in the wound strategy. We have to get to a place where so what we have to do right now, after we kind of talk about that, and it may get edited later, preaching to the choir won't help these ladies. What they've got to realize is I can't go back to that. I got to make my business work now. I'm an entrepreneur, right? Yeah. So then did you immediately quit and become an entrepreneur?
No, I left the company though.
Okay. So forget what you did next. Tell me when you became an entrepreneur. That has to be the next sentence in this thing. Remember, we're never going to tell dates, timelines, years, anything in this story. It's just going to all look like, we may omit 10 years of your life, and we're just going to say, so I finally got to the point where I had to start my own business. And then what we really need is a part where it almost fails and someone helps you and it doesn't fail, because then we're going to have to demonstrate the value of coaching and then the value of what you can do. It'll make sense in a minute. Tell me the first time you ever became an entrepreneur. Was it Sales Maven Society? What was it?
Well, really what happened was I left my corporate job after that trade show. Like, that was the beginning of the absolute end, where I realized, like, I was just about to turn 40 and I did not want to be 50 standing there talking to these same, like you call them, lonely people that were dead inside, frankly. So I went to work for my teacher that was teaching and selling neurolinguistic programming classes. And that was when I started hanging around entrepreneurs. And I was, basically selling people into her classes. And that was when I recognized that a lot of these entrepreneurs were filled with this thing that was missing in my life. They were filled with passion, and they were so passionate about whatever their expertise was, the impact they wanted to make in the world. And I just wanted to spend as much time as possible around passionate people, because that was missing in the corporate world for me. And so as I got to know these women and spend time with them, I started to realize too that they were struggling to make money. And the reason they were struggling to make money is because they did not know how to sell. And that was something I knew how to do. So I just started really giving them advice kind of on the side and helping them. And one person in particular took notice, and she started implementing these things that I would tell her. We used to commute to a networking meeting together. So we'd have like at least an hour in the car each way. And she would just ask me question after question after question. And
what was her name?
Her name was Lisa.
So the narrative that we need to tell, because we're using language from earlier, is here's how we should say this. Like, 17 years later, something was missing. I was selling technology. I was amazing. I was an absolute, we're going to say this here. I was absolute expert. I love that terminology. So you're just crushing it. And then you realized everyone was dead inside. And then I decided to ask for a promotion to get me off the road. Someone told me, you're a woman, that will never promote you. And I realized the company would not take care of me, like many of you have. Then we're going to fast forward. So I left the corporate world and quit. I realized I was an expert in sales and business. I was so passionate about what I did. And I saw a lot of other people who were passionate, struggling, and I wanted to help them because I could teach them how to sell so they would get to keep doing what they did. That's going to be like the theme from this point on. So they get to keep doing what they are absolute experts and passionate about. This will all clean up over 3 sessions. But because what you have to do here, we're not really telling your story. They're living vicariously through your story. And you're going to place a fear. You're going to inception a fear here. If you don't hire me, you may not get to do what you are passionate about and you're an absolute expert at. Now, what I want to know is, Lisa's important, but Lisa, you were working for another company, just having a conversation, right, with someone, and she was doing it?
Yeah, she was implementing like the things that I was coaching her on. I was helping to grow somebody else's business. It was my NLP teacher's business. So the company she was working for, the president of the company called her and they're like, something's changed. What's changed? Because her sales were growing so substantially. And she said, oh, I'm working with a sales coach, but I wasn't a sales coach at the time.
Okay, but hold on. We can say that in a way that has full integrity, but the audience doesn't know that. Like, for example, you really were coaching her. You were just doing it for free.
Yeah.
Right. So, and she identified you as a coach, right?
Yes.
So what I would say is, did her boss call you or something?
No, what happened was she introduced me. So her boss was like, let's find out more about this woman. Their director of sales came to Seattle. They arranged a meeting. They ended up hiring me to be their keynote speaker at their national sales conference that year.
All right. So what we're going to say kind of is, so I started helping a friend named Lisa by coaching her, since we didn't say she paid you, by coaching her on sales. Numbers shot through the roof. Her boss noticed. Remember his name?
I don't.
If you can't remember a name, just make it up. I do this all the time. Like, I tell that story about selling our business, and I was negotiating with this Russian guy named Sergey. And one time I was just up on a stage and I just completely blanked on that, even though I told that story 1,000 times. And I just called him Igor, and the crowd laughed harder because, like, I mean, it's just the story is 100% true. You just forgot the dude's name, so just make up a name, right? Dave McAfee, we'll call him. And you can be like, I think his name was Dave McAfee. I don't know what was his name. Who knows? That the audience doesn't know that, and it doesn't change the story at all. And so this guy, was he like the CEO or anything? Like,
so it was the president that called her, and then it was the national, I think it was the national sales director that I met that then ended up hiring me to speak at their national sales conference.
And I think this is a good jumping off point of inspiring you to just be like, well, forget this. I'll start my own business and start teaching people. What happened after that?
That's when Sales Maven really was born from that.
All right, cool. So then was Sales Maven a crazy big hit right out of the gate?
No.
All right. I think what would be interesting here is to, one, talk about a struggle. We want to make your first step into entrepreneurship a little bit of a hiccup for relatability, like stuff that they could relate to. And then we're going to basically say, and then I realized all I have to do is fall back on what I do best. Sell to me, baby. I had to focus on sales. I just had to step back, and then your methodology is selling more product and services, and you grow this business, right? That's what set the foundation for growth. And then you can talk about victory, like your best year ever. Just be like, talk about your best year ever. What was your best year ever? Was it 2021, 22, 2020?
It was 2021 was my best year ever.
So that's what we'll talk about. We'll go peak there. That'll be like victory moment where you now I'm this is crushing it. I'm helping lots of people, blah, blah, blah. Then we'll talk about one of your first paid clients is what we'll do, right? To kind of mimic. And that's pretty much all we need to do is my crap worked for me and other people, and let's go, right? And then you're ready. You'll be ready to pitch like after that point. And we're going to generate so much emotion. This is a very top-heavy emotional charge story. We'll have to go through and put some entertainment value in this as well. But most stories don't turn this fast into like about the user, but yours is going to, because like all you've got to do is remind people of that fear of, if you don't hire Nikki, you're going to have to go back to work for somebody else in that corporate dead place. Right. I think that's what it seems like your avatar would be most afraid of, is the failure of their business that they're really good at, really passionate about. And then they'd have to go get a job again. Right. Or do it for somebody else and not themselves. Like that's the core fear we have to spark, because if that fear is there, then why would they not hire you? Is that's the only fear that matters, is that your business, you're passionate and you're an absolute expert. If you don't hire me, your business will fail. And then you'll have to go back to the zombie apocalypse of the trade show world, or whatever it is for them. All right. So Sales Maven was born. Tell me about the first year of Sales Maven. What year was it?
2013.
All right. So we're not going to say that year. It's too far away. People will think things aren't relevant anymore. So just say like, my first couple years. Do you feel like most of your people are well established in their business, or in the first couple of years of their business?
I would say most are in the first couple of years of their business. I mean, I certainly have clients that have been in business for longer than me, but
my favorite things to say. My first couple years, I do this all the time in my seminars. My first couple years in business was a struggle because I was all alone. So now we've set the stage of, whatever you're struggling is, you're struggling because you don't have Nikki. You're alone. You don't have the right coach. Or you can even say things like, because I didn't have the right person or whatever. Like I wasn't doing the right things. But like it's a really generalized statement here to say this, because at the end, when you do the pitch, you're going to say, hey, you can go it alone and struggle like I did, or you can fix it. Right.
Okay. So I'm going to say that, again, I've done, 300 podcast guest appearances. I'm not exaggerating that number. And I will say that I often talk about the fact that the difference for me was that I hired a coach pretty early on in my business.
Yes, for sure. And that's good. We're going to talk about that. Okay. So, but I want to know I want to know why you hired the coach. Take me back to right before you hired the coach. Like, how did you feel? Were you overwhelmed? Tell me something that went wrong earlier in your business.
I didn't have the confidence, honestly, to charge what I needed to charge to make any money. Like I knew that if I just was selling what I was offering at the price I was selling it at, there's no way I could have a sustainable business. And I needed to figure out what the offer needed to be to charge more, because I couldn't work enough hours to make the kind of money that I needed to make.
Write down absolute expert, and please say that as much as you can for the rest of your life. Like that work, because I'm telling you, if you can give them that identity, I'm an absolute expert. I was passionate and I was not confident. And who did you hire that fixed that problem, that helped you through it?
I hired really the person that fixed the problem for me is I hired a business coach that said some things like, she's like, you're not allowed to create any new content for a year because you have too much content, and you have to.
I've never said that to you before.
You have to sell what you already have. And then she made me offer my first VIP program.
Remember what you paid for it?
What I paid for her, I probably paid like $2,500, maybe $3,000.
All right. This is writing itself, because we're going to say, so I knew I needed help to succeed. So what was her name?
Her name's Mary Bicknell.
I never say the last name of my coaches. I just say like, I hired a guy named Pat. I hired a guy named James, because if they're still around, they might go look for them, whatever, so they usually don't. But like,
she is still around, but yeah.
Hearing, I spent about $3,000 on that coach. And then like, what year did you hire her?
I think I hired her in like 2015, maybe 2014, 2015.
What do you think the average annual revenue over the last 8 years has been?
If I'm looking at the average 8 years, I mean, typically right now my business is doing between 250 and 3.
Okay, so watch this. This is awesome. Let's just say the average, if you average it out with the smaller years in the beginning, was about 200 for an easy number, right?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, watch this. This is a total true statement. Now, you would say that $3,000 was worth it because she helped you set your prices, right? When you say that, that was a really good decision to do that.
Oh, well, like honestly, I think probably within 2 months of working with her, I think I closed $10,000 in business.
This is amazing. In just 2 months of hiring a coach, my business foundation was laid. Now watch us. Don't think about this, but like, so if you averaged 200K, whatever, 250, either way, let's just say it's 200K over 8 years, whatever. And you know, guys, that 3,000. Remember, we're not saying dates and times. You don't do that, guys. That $3,000 turned into 1.6 million in revenue. If I had never spent that $3,000, I probably would not have made $1.6 million in revenue. Now, what are they thinking at the end of the webinar when you're pitching a $3,000 product? We can literally plant a value proposition right here in your actual story, of like, this decision, like the decision for me to go speak on stage created like $15 million in sales for this big organization I was in. If I never made the decision, it wouldn't have happened. So we're telling them right here, like that it did turn into that. You changed your price, you got a foundation, you stayed in business, you've been in business all this time. If you had never hired that coach, you might have went out of business, right? Because you wouldn't have never known what to charge yourself.
Yeah.
You traded 3,000 for 1.6. When you ask for 3,000, how easy is the decision for the user in your sales presentation, right? To say that. And it's true. Like you don't have to, you're just condensing and compressing the information. Like that 3K, hiring a coach for 3K ended up making me over $1.5 million. That was a key moment that would have never happened in your business. So now we've shown failure and vulnerability. We've modeled hiring a coach for $3,000, which is a true part of your story.
Mm-hmm.
And we've shown a result, even though we're not pitching, we're not doing anything. We're just telling the story. And they're like, whoa, like, and you can say, like, isn't that amazing? Like, who would love a result like that? Like, it's a chance for a trial close, like, boom. And now it's like established. Had Sales Maven podcast been launched at that time?
No, I didn't launch the podcast until 2020.
Okay, cool. So I think what we need to do in your story here is, again, we need to get back in the time machine and just warp to another part of the story. I think that a great thing to do here is to like really hammer home the podcast here, like talk about launching the podcast and how, it started building the Sales Maven like audience, and because I'd say most of these people heard you in a podcast. So I think your podcast journey goes here, right? Like, because all these people probably are going to be at least listen to your podcast, or they know you have a podcast, or they're going to eventually start listening to your podcast. So it's like, once I had my coaching dialed in, that's a confidence builder for later when you sell them coaching. Well, she's got her coaching dialed in. I think we got to talk about that. So like, just tell me real quick, just a nutshell version of how you launched your podcast and why.
So the reason I launched it was because I started getting asked to guest on podcasts. And in 2019, people kept saying to me, I binge you on podcasts. And I was like, how can you binge me? I don't have a podcast. But they would just go into the podcast app and search for my name and listen to all these different people's podcasts. So that's where I just decided, well, obviously there's a built-in audience. People want to hear my message. So that's why I launched my podcast in 2020, was with this idea of giving people the content that I thought they needed to hear, because I still guest, but at the same time, now there's a place where they can truly come and binge.
And like also too, like here, it's beautiful that you launched it in 2020. We need to take advantage of that. What was happening in 2020? The global freaking end of the world pandemic, right? Yeah. And like, so we can go off on a little tangent here eventually about a pandemic story that's probably funny. Like we need like some kind of humorous, funny thing, or maybe something you did to invest in yourself, or I don't know. We're gonna do something like there again to drive home the fact that like the point of this section will be, I did this during the pandemic, right? So it's gonna elevate, like boom, like it's kind of like the cream story. Like if I can do a podcast here, you can do whatever you've got to do next. You just need my help to do it, or whatever. Now this victory will be 2021. We're not going to say it's your best year ever. We're going to say, I hit my stride. Things exploded. And then we're going to show what your business did in general terms. We won't give like numbers and stuff. You know, like the membership and hundreds of members and, you know, that $60,000 month you had or that one time. Was that in 2021? I think that was in 2020. Was that February? Was that when we were working together?
Yeah. But I think it was February of 2020.
Or whatever. We'll just talk about it. But we're going to talk about a bunch of things that happened in 2020, 2021, 2022. We'll cherry pick some highlights. And you have an unfair advantage here too, because you can do kind of something I do. Like, you know, I always tell people, like, I practice what I preach and I drink my own Kool-Aid, right? Like I'm doing my stuff. You know what I'm saying? Like we're going to live or die by it. We're in business or out of business. You know, of course we're getting support and help from other places, but like, you know, you want to make sure that people know that I do what I say and teach.
I always say I walk my talk. I don't ask you to do things
I
that
walk
I don't
my talk. Yeah. And then this is normally like a first testimonial, but we've kind of already done that because we talked about like Lisa. So I think right here we can go your favorite testimonial. The reason we're going to do your favorite first is because I want you to show pride in a student first. Like I'm really proud of our first one, like because it's my friends that I went to church with. It was awesome. You know, like, oh, it's so awesome. I could help my friend quit their job. That's ridiculous. Real quick, who's your favorite testimonial?
One of my favorite with a coaching, like a private coaching client, is there's two parts to it. An hour after we ended our VIP session, she, for the first time ever, closed on the call, and she had never closed on a call. She hired me initially because she wanted to make $10,000 a month. And within that first year, she was like leaving me Voxers laughing, going, remember when I wanted to make $10,000 a month, Nikki? I'm making $40,000 a month now.
Yes. Who is that? What's their name?
Her name's Lori.
Find Lori, get the testimonial, get permission. If not, we'll use a fake picture and a fake name because you got to tell that story. Because this is going to be a chance for you to show that you are passionate, have pride, and an absolute expert in helping people get these results. And like, it's a great story. Like, not only did you help her get that first sale an hour after our first VIP session, she made her first sale, and then she grew that to $40,000 a month. You're about to pitch your VIP sessions in 5 seconds. So just saying that as your favorite testimonial. And then who is your least likely success story?
I need to do a little bit of like reflection on this to come up with.
Cool. But this is great. So now the story basically goes something like this. All right, you do all your stuff, have a quick testimony and go. But let me tell you how I got into doing Sales Maven Society. You know, back in college, I was just trying to do what everybody else wanted me to do. And I got sucked into the corporate world. I saw these two knuckleheads I was in class with apply for a job in the newspaper and get it. And I thought, well, if they can do it, I can do it. And I love that it's guys. Make sure you stress that it's dudes. And because now you're an empowered woman doing it. So I decided to apply, and guess what? I got the job, and I got sucked into this corporate world. I thought that's just what you were supposed to do. And then I looked up 17 years later, and I was at a trade show, and I did like 100 trade shows a year, guys. Like, think about that. And I realized everyone around me looked lonely and miserable and soul sucked out of their bodies. And then I realized, oh no, I know them. I'm their friends. I'm one of them. Oh my gosh, I can't do this for the next 17 years. I got to change something. So I went and asked my boss for a promotion. And my boss basically looked at me and said, you're a woman. They're never going to promote you. And that's when I realized that my company wasn't going to take care of me. So I decided to leave the corporate world and quit my job because I knew I was an absolute expert at sales. I knew that I could do that. And I wanted to go help people like you guys, people who were also absolute experts, people who were so passionate about everything that they did. And the only thing that was holding them back from growing their business was sales. The only thing that could keep them where they are instead of going back to their own life was sales. And I knew that I could help it. So I started helping a friend named Lisa. We just started talking. I started giving her tips, and her sales exploded. They went through the roof. Her boss, this guy named, I think his name was David McAfee or something. He basically reached out to me and said, I want you to, whatever you did to Lisa, we want you to do for our national sales organization. Will you come speak at this national sales thing that we have? And they hired me to go speak at their national conference and teach all their people about sales. And once I helped all those people, I said, oh my gosh, I got to help other people. So I launched Sales Maven Society. I launched salesmaven.com. All right. My first couple years though, guys, it was a struggle. You guys know how it is in the first couple of years of your business. Some of you may be frustrated and struggling right now. Well, one of the things that held me back was I wasn't confident enough to charge what I was worth. I knew I was an absolute expert. I knew I was passionate, just like you guys are about what you do. I just wasn't confident enough to charge what I was worth. I had no idea how to set my prices. So I did what everyone should do when they're struggling in their business. I went out and I found a coach that could help me take my next steps. Her name was Mary. I spent about $3,000 on that coaching. In just 2 months, we had fixed all these problems and I had the foundation laid for my business. And get this, guys, that $3,000 I spent with Mary turned into $1.5 million in revenue over time. That's crazy, right? But that's what happens when you invest yourself. Now, once I had my coaching dialed in, once I had my price dialed in, I decided that I needed to go out and tell more people about what I did. So I started being a guest on other people's podcasts. And I was guesting on a ton of shows. And I started getting like messages from people saying, I binge watch all your podcasts. And I thought to myself, I don't have a podcast, right? But then I realized they were just going and searching for me and listening to all my guest appearances. So in 2020, yes, during the global pandemic, like I don't mess around. I invest and I do hard work, even at hard times. I went out and I launched the podcast. The result, 2021, biggest year ever. I hit my stride. Things exploded. Started having amazing comments. I started helping people who were passionate, people who were absolute experts, make sure they could grow their business so they didn't have to go back to their own life, make sure they succeeded with sales so they didn't fail and have to shut their doors. And that's why I help you. I help people like you now, like Lori, like whoever. Let's pitch, right? So that's the narrative. Anything that doesn't live in that story space, we are not going to talk about anymore in any more sessions. But that's exciting. Like that's basically telling people exactly what you do and giving them a price point you're going to pitch and give them a result that they can climb after. Okay. So
Yeah.
how do you feel about that narrative right now?
I like it. I like it.
Love it. Okay. So here's what I want you to do for homework. 1, go find your testimonials. Like you have a person making 40 grand a month. That needs to be the first testimonial on your website, right? Like, or whatever it was during that time. What I want you to do is I want you to go through this outline, all right, and think of 3 things, okay, as you're reading through it, okay? All right. I want you to think of things that happened that were funny. And I want you to like the newspaper thing. Like talk about that. Like how do you think about that story? Laugh about it. Like I look like who were the dudes? Why were they knuckleheads? Like, you know, like this dude cheat like that. This guy cheated on every test or whatever, you know, like go through each bullet point and see if you can comment on it with something that was funny from that time period, because we want to be able to go back and inject some humor into it. And we'll talk about those next time. Then I want you to think of more failures, right? Like maybe as you're going through here, like maybe you've got a funny trade show story of, you know, the whole backdrop collapsed in the middle of signing the biggest purchase order you ever had, or whatever it is, like some kind of failure, like, or like, you know, like why was this trade show so soul sucking? What was the worst failure, soul sucking story? Why did trade shows suck for you? Right? Like, think about that. Think about failures and to do it for each section. So like, think about like, you know, a failure when you left your corporate job. Think about, you have one for your pricing. Like think about fears and failures and funny stuff. And then think of fears. Like what was your fears you had at that time? Like, especially this part where right before you hired a coach, what was the fear you had about your business if you didn't hire that coach? It'll help us when we start scripting a little bit more and getting the webinar slides going. It'll help us to come up with like funny imagery and like stuff like that, because we want people to laugh. We want them to see fears, and we want them to see obstacles that cause failure, because fears and obstacles and are what hold people back from buying. So we want to pepper those in there with this existing narrative, but like, don't leave the timeline we've created. It's hard for you because you're a speaker and you've done things in the past and you've got lots of stories. We want to stay tight here. This has to be about 20 to 25 minutes of the presentation. And this is going to do the job to get them to buy the product. Anything else outside of this won't, but we want more emotion in it. So that's what you're going to work on now. And then let's get to the place where we're scripting, and let's get this scripted fast, and then start building the slide deck and start moving toward an actual webinar. Because the most valuable thing I can do is watch you do the thing that we create. This is going to sell. Yeah. I mean, it's kind of an unfair advantage that you hired a coach for what you're going to charge and you made $1.5 million in revenue over time. Like, that's a ridiculous, you should give me $3,000 part of your story. All right, guys, that wraps up today's podcast. I hope you enjoyed that story pitch session with Nikki Roush. Make sure you check out everything she's doing online. She's got a great podcast. I've been on the podcast. Go check out that episode, and go check her out over on her website as well. And if you want to take your storytelling to the next level so that you can grow your business and your brand, head over to ShaneSams.com. We've got a lot of awesome programs and services to help entrepreneurs, to help coaches, to help authors and speakers tell their story to the masses so they can accomplish their goals in their life. I love talking one-to-many. It's the most effective way to scale your business, and I can help you do that over there at ShaneSams.com. Make sure you go over and check out our YouTube channel as well. We're posting amazing content there pretty much on a daily basis, and we've got more story pitch sessions that you can run and listen to, that you can work on your story. There's a lot of great tips, tactics, and strategies you can pick up along the way. Cough button, didn't hit it. And you can get in there and you can get a lot of other great resources to grow your business and your brand. But that is all the time we have for this week's Shane Sams Show. We've got some great guest interviews coming up in the future. I've got some great solo shows as well. Make sure you're subscribed. Make sure you go leave that 5-star review, and make sure you're tuning in every single week. But right now, I've got to comb my hair and go to the gym because I need to get a workout in. So have a great day. Light it up, y'all. We'll see you next time.